Hey everyone, in this tutorial we're gonna dive into Houdini and we're gonna create our setup for the splashes. So it will be those meshes. Let me actually show you how they look. So we've created in the previous video in Houdini, we made the setup for Projectile, this blob mesh and some droplets. And this time we're gonna dive and create some splashes. As you can see here, which I'm using them to add a bit more details to the water projectile. All right, it will be very simple setup. We actually not gonna do any simulation. I'm just trying to create those meshes with a very simple methods so you can follow along without creating any complex fluid simulations. All right, so let's dive in. So I'm gonna start by creating a geometry node. I'm gonna call this one splashes. Dive inside and I'm gonna start with a sphere. I'm gonna change it to polygon and I'm gonna add a bit more frequency to it, maybe even 30. I'm gonna zoom in by pressing space and F while hovering on my viewport. Next, I'm gonna get mountain. And in here, I'm just gonna change maybe amplitude to something much higher, like 4. I'm gonna go for this Vorloi noise. I'm gonna zoom out by pressing space and F, and I'm gonna tweak the element size, maybe knock it down to 0.5 to create that funny shape. And I just need this for my scatter, so I'm gonna turn that into ISO offset. Gonna increase the samples maybe up to 50, and next I'm gonna get the scatter. For the scatter amount, I'm just gonna go with the default here. I'm just gonna click randomly on relax iterations as well here, and maybe somewhere random here as well. And from that scatter, I'm gonna get the fluid, and I'm gonna just get particle fluid surface. I'm gonna click on it and we're getting this really weird shape, and what I want to do is just tweak a couple settings. So in here I'm gonna put separation to be 0.05. As you can see, we're already kind of getting this weird swirly meshes. So I'm gonna reduce the voxel scale maybe down to 5, and I think this is something where you have to experiment with the numbers. Just don't go too low because your computer is gonna start going crazy. I think we got some of the nice shapes there, but I'm gonna keep going. For the influence size, I'm actually gonna increase it up to 4. And now you can see we are getting a much better shapes. So I think I'm gonna tweak that settings, maybe 3.5. Okay, I want to see if I can actually isolate some of them, because I think some of them might be really useful. So after that, I'm just gonna get small parts, and that will be delete labs, delete small parts. One of the labs tools, I highly recommend you have labs installed. And in here with the default settings, we're getting this. I'm just gonna put maybe 0.2, but I have to go back to the fluid here and change this to be surface polygon instead. And once that's done, you can see some of the small parts disappeared. I'm gonna keep increasing because there are some I really don't like. Okay, maybe a little bit more, maybe 0.4. And we're getting those shapes. So now let's create a setup. I'm gonna get for each loop, for each connected pieces. In here, single pass, and now you can just go through some of them and pick the ones you like. Okay, so let's create a setup here so we can actually use this loop. And in here, ideally, we would like to have a axis, align axis, so we can center it, its pivot point to be at 0. What else we want to do to each mesh? Maybe we want to do a remesh so we get a slightly better geometry. I'm gonna decrease its size to maybe 0.5. Seems okay. We probably want some normals, but first maybe let's reduce its poly count, so that'll be reduce. And if you have a polygon count per each one, you can just select it here, or you can go with the percentages. I'm gonna go with the numbers to keep, and I'm gonna keep reducing maybe to 500. Let's see. Okay, 500 maybe. And as a last note, I'm just gonna add normals. So that will be normal, and I'm gonna pick the lap soften normals. So I'm getting the smooth normals on it. Obviously that's not a splash, so let's pick something a lot better. I think this one might look cool, but I think it's a bit too stretched. That one might be cool. Let's keep going. 11, 12, and as you can see, we are getting some shapes that we could use for splashes. But before we're gonna do anything else, I'm gonna complete the setup. So next I just need a game engine scale here, and that will be 50. And last, it will be null for the export. And whenever you're exporting, you can just select this one node, go here, export Filmbox FBX, and you can export the FBX to your location. But let's go back to the setup. So I'm gonna go to the fluid, and maybe we can create slightly better shapes with it. So I'm gonna go to filtering, enable dilate, maybe put this to 1.5, see the difference, maybe 0.1 even. Okay, so I think maybe 2 by default, it's cool. I'm gonna enable smooth and try to change those settings slightly, so I could get maybe slightly better shapes, and the final smooth as well. Maybe mean curvature flow. I'm gonna keep adding it. Okay, maybe 4. And I think some of them are really cool shapes, especially like that one maybe. Let's change a couple settings under surfacing. So here, voxel size, I'm going to increase it to 0.45. I think that's a little bit too much, maybe 3.5, just to see what I'm going to get. Okay, so I think some of them are useful. Let's select our loop. Oh, whoa, okay. I'm gonna increase the poly count maybe to 2000 for now. Oops, not 200, to 1000. Okay, that's a large one. I think a little bit too much. So let's go here. 2, 3, 4. I think that one might be really cool as a single splash. It might be a good time to go to poly reduce and reduce it a little bit. Let's keep going. That one's got some cool parts, but I think it's just too big. So 11, again, same thing. That one, 13, let's go to 15 until we'll be happy. Okay, so I think that one's pretty cool as well. I think it might be a little bit dilated. So let's go here to poly, surface, filtering, and I think I'm just gonna delete that final smooth, just so I can get a slightly different results. Or maybe reduce it down to 1. But it seems like it's changing my whole surface because it's based on the delete small parts. I think it's just being deleted at some point. Okay, so as you can see, some of them might be very useful. Let me open Unreal Engine so I can show you what kind of results I've got from those shapes. Okay, so let me isolate the splashes. And as you can see, I've got a lot of transparency there, using some material tricks as well, because I don't want them to be fully visible. I want some of them and parts of them also being visible, maybe around this area, and then I'm just using the erode to add a bit more detail to the whole projectile. As you can see, they're just adding a bit more detail there. So let's go through them. That's the first one. And the other one is that kind of shape. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, normally I'll probably create like the whole setup using the Houdini fluids. But because I wanted something quick and simple, and those actually work in my case, maybe those gonna work for you as well. All right, anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll find them useful.